Satou Sabally's switch from Jordan Brand to ADIDAS isn't just another sneaker deal. It's a power move that's shaking up the entire women's basketball landscape. Talk about moving from the jump man to rocking the three. Candace Parker leading Adidas's women's division, this signing signals a major shift in the industry. Nike's reaction? Pure fury. They just watched a rising superstar join a growing roster of elite talent at Adidas, and the timing couldn't be worse. But there's more to this story than just switching brands. Let's break down why this deal has Nike executives losing sleep. As signed, Satou Sabally to a multi-year contract, she is ditching the Jumpman brand. She was signed with Jordan. Now she is signed with the 3, aka Adidas. And this is just another signing that Candace Parker has had since taking her role with Adidas. Now, the sneaker world just witnessed one of the biggest power moves in women's basketball history, and Nike definitely didn't see this one coming. Satou Sabally, one of the most dynamic players in the WNBA, just jumped ship from Jordan Brand to Adidas, and the story behind this switch is absolutely wild. Now, we need to understand what makes this move so significant. Sabally isn't just any player making a sneaker deal. She's a unicorn in women's basketball, a 6'4" forward who can do it all on the court. She was with Jordan Brand, which, if you know anything about basketball, is like being part of basketball royalty. Nike doesn't just give out those Jordan Brand deals to anyone. But here's where things get really interesting. Enter Candace Parker, one of the greatest players in women's basketball history, who's now running Adidas's women's basketball division. Parker didn't just make Sabally an offer, she made her a priority. We're talking about a calculated move that had been in the works for months. The timing of this couldn't be more perfect, or worse, if you're Nike. Women's basketball is experiencing an explosion in popularity. The unrivaled 3x3 league is taking off, WNBA viewership is hitting record numbers, and social media engagement around women's basketball is through the roof. Sabally is right at the center of all this momentum. Nike's reaction to losing Sabally speaks volumes. They're watching one of their brightest stars not just leave, but join forces with Candace Parker, who's building something special at Adidas. Parker isn't just signing athletes, she's creating a movement. She's assembling a roster that includes Chelsea Gray, Kahleah Copper, Aaliyah Boston, and now Sabally. Let's talk about what Nike's really losing here. Sabally isn't just a great player, she's a marketing goldmine. She's got international appeal as a member of the German national team. She's bilingual, charismatic, and has a huge social media following. She's exactly the kind of athlete brands dream about having as a representative. The way this deal went down is fascinating. Sabally was a free agent both in the WNBA and in the sneaker world, which is pretty rare timing. Usually these contracts are staggered, but this perfect storm of circumstances allowed Adidas to make their move, and they didn't hesitate. When Sabally said joining Adidas was a dream come true, that wasn't just PR speak. Look at what Adidas is doing in women's basketball. They're not just signing players, they're investing in the future of the sport. They recently made history by signing their first high school women's basketball player, Kalina Smith. That's the kind of forward thinking that attracted Sabally. The ripple effects of this deal are already being felt across the industry. Other WNBA players are watching. Young athletes are watching. When someone like Sabally leaves Jordan Brand, it makes everyone question what they know about the sneaker hierarchy in basketball. What's particularly interesting is how this fits into the larger picture of women's sports marketing. We're seeing a shift away from the old model where female athletes were just given smaller versions of men's deals. Companies like Adidas, under Parker's leadership, are creating specific strategies for women's basketball. Nike's traditionally been the dominant force in basketball, both men's and women's. They've got the Jordan Brand, they've got the heritage, they've got the prestige. But what Adidas is doing right now is different. They're not just competing on legacy, they're competing on vision. Look at the roster Adidas has built. Chelsea Gray, one of the most clutch players in the WNBA. Kahleah Copper, an explosive scorer who's must-watch TV. Aaliyah Boston, who's revolutionizing the center position. And now, Sabally, who can play any position on the court. This isn't just a collection of great players. It's a statement about where women's basketball is heading. The deal also shows how the power dynamics in sports marketing are shifting. Athletes aren't just looking for the biggest check anymore. They're looking for partners who understand their value and share their vision for growing the sport. ADIDAS under Parker's leadership is proving they get it. What's really got Nike worried is what this means for the future. Sabally is just 25 years old. She's entering her prime, both as a player and as a marketable star. This isn't just about losing her now, it's about losing what she could become over the next decade. The way ADIDAS announced this deal was telling too. They didn't just put out a press release, they created content that showcased Sabally's personality, her style, her game. They treated it like the major acquisition it was, and that resonated across the basketball world. Parker's comment about Sabally being a unicorn on and off the court wasn't just hype, it was recognition of what makes her special. She's not just a great basketball player, she's someone who can connect with fans, who can influence culture, who can help shape the future of the sport. The deal is also significant because of what it represents for international players. Sabally, being from Germany, helps ADIDAS strengthen their presence in the European market. This isn't just about the WNBA, it's about global women's basketball. Nike's silence since the announcement has been deafening. They're watching their competitor build something special, and they can't do anything about it. Every time Sabally steps on the court in ADIDAS gear, it's going to be a reminder of what they lost. The impact on Jordan Brand specifically is worth noting. They've been trying to expand their presence in women's basketball, and Sabally was a key part of that strategy. Losing her to ADIDAS isn't just about losing a player, it's about losing momentum in a crucial market. What makes this situation even more interesting is how it might affect Nike's future signing strategies. Will they become more aggressive in locking down young talent? Will they create a women's-specific division like ADIDAS has? These are questions they're probably wrestling with right now. The timing of this deal, coming during the WNBA offseason, but during the unrivaled 3x3 season, gives ADIDAS immediate visibility. Sabally is playing in front of packed crowds, getting massive social media attention, and now she's doing it all in ADIDAS gear. The reaction from other players has been fascinating too. Many have congratulated Sabally publicly. But it's the private conversations that are probably making Nike nervous. Every player is watching how this plays out, how ADIDAS handles their new star, and what it might mean for their own future deals. This move also challenges the traditional hierarchy in basketball sneaker deals. Jordan Brand has always been seen as the pinnacle, the most prestigious partnership a player could have. But Sabally's switch suggests that perhaps that perception is changing, at least in women's basketball. Looking at the details of what ADIDAS is building, it's clear this isn't just about selling sneakers. They're creating a community, a movement within women's basketball. Every player they sign becomes part of something bigger, and that's appealing to athletes who want to leave a lasting impact on the sport. Parker's influence in all of this can't be overstated. As a player, she was revolutionary. As an executive, she's proving to be just as impactful. She understands what athletes are looking for, because she's been in their shoes. That authenticity is something Nike's finding hard to match right now. The way this deal is structured goes beyond just wearing ADIDAS shoes during games. It's about being part of the brand's vision for women's basketball, about having a voice in product development, about helping shape the future of the sport. That's what makes it so significant, and so worrying for Nike. When you look at the complete picture, the timing, the strategy, the roster ADIDAS has built, you start to understand why Nike is so concerned. This isn't just about losing one player. It's about losing ground in a market that's growing exponentially to a competitor who seems to understand exactly what today's athletes are looking for. The ripple effects of Sabally's move to ADIDAS are just starting to show, and they're bigger than anyone expected. Let's break down what's happening behind the scenes and why this deal might change women's sports marketing forever. First, let's talk about what ADIDAS is really getting here. Sabally isn't just bringing her game, she's bringing her entire brand. We're talking about someone who's got over 500,000 followers across social media, who speaks multiple languages, and who's becoming one of the most recognizable faces in women's basketball. The interesting part is how ADIDAS is positioning this signing. They're not just adding another athlete to their roster, they're making Sabally a central piece of their women's basketball strategy. This isn't about putting her face on some ads. It's about building an entire movement around players like her. What's really got people talking is how this fits into Candace Parker's larger vision at Adidas. Think about it. In less than a year, Parker has transformed Adidas women's basketball from an afterthought into a powerhouse. She's signing top WNBA talent, she's getting into high school recruitment, and now she's pulled off this massive coup with Sabally. The timing of all this is crucial. Women's sports are experiencing unprecedented growth. TV ratings are up, social media engagement is through the roof, and brands are finally starting to realize the marketing potential. Adidas isn't just riding this wave, they're helping create it. Nike's problem isn't just that they lost Sabally. It's that they're watching Adidas create something they should have built years ago. A women's basketball division led by one of the greatest players ever, making bold moves and signing top talent. The optics are terrible for Nike, and they know it. The industry insiders are fascinated by how this might change sneaker deals going forward. Traditionally, Nike has had the upper hand in basketball. They could offer Jordan brand deals, they had the prestige, they had the history. But now, athletes are seeing that there might be better options. Look at what Adidas is offering these players. It's not just about wearing the shoes, it's about being part of the brand's future. They're giving athletes input on product development, marketing strategies, and community initiatives. That's something young players are really responding to. The high school angle is particularly interesting. Adidas signing Kalina Smith, their first high school women's basketball player, shows they're thinking long-term. They're not just going after established stars, they're trying to build relationships with the next generation of talent. This has created a fascinating dynamic in the sneaker industry. Nike still has massive resources and huge stars, but Adidas has momentum and authenticity. They've got Candace Parker, making decisions based on real experience in women's basketball. That matters to athletes. The international aspect of this deal is huge too. Sabally's German background opens up European markets for Adidas. They're not just thinking about the WNBA, they're thinking about global women's basketball. And with the Paris Olympics coming up, this timing couldn't be better. What's really interesting is how other brands are reacting. Puma's been making moves in basketball. Under Armour's been looking to expand their women's division, and now everyone's watching to see if they'll try to match what Adidas is doing. The player reaction has been telling. WNBA players are watching this situation closely. They're seeing how Adidas is treating their athletes, how they're marketing them, how they're involving them in the brand's future. This could lead to more big names making switches when their contracts are up. Sabally's deal is also changing how we think about athlete partnerships. It's not just about wearing the logo anymore. These deals are becoming more collaborative, more strategic. Athletes want to know how brands will help them build their personal brands and grow the sport. The community aspect of what Adidas is building can't be overlooked. They've got Chelsea Gray, Kalea Copper, Aaliyah Boston, and now Sabally. These aren't just random signings. They're building a community of athletes who can support and amplify each other. The product side of this is fascinating too. Adidas isn't just giving these players existing shoes to wear, they're involving them in the design process, getting their input on what women basketball players actually need. That's something that's been missing in the industry. What's particularly smart about Adidas' strategy is how they're using social media. They're not just posting about their athletes, they're creating content that showcases their personalities, their stories, their impact on the game. It's marketing that feels authentic and connected. The college basketball angle is interesting too. With NIL deals now a huge part of college sports, high school and college players are watching how brands treat their athletes. Adidas is setting a new standard that could influence the next generation of signing decisions. The business impact of this deal goes beyond just sneaker sales. It's about market share in women's sports, which is growing faster than ever. Adidas is positioning themselves as the brand that truly understands and supports women's basketball. That's powerful messaging. The sustainability of what Adidas is building is what's really impressive. They're not just making splashy signings, they're creating an ecosystem. From high school talent to WNBA stars, they're building relationships at every level of women's basketball. Looking at the numbers, women's sports merchandise sales are growing exponentially. Sabally's jersey sales were already strong, and this deal is likely to boost them even further. Adidas isn't just signing an athlete, they're investing in a growth market. The media coverage of this deal has been different too. It's not just being treated as a sneaker deal story, it's being covered as a significant moment in women's sports business. That's a sign of how the industry is evolving. The long-term implications for Nike are concerning. They're still the biggest name in basketball, but their dominance in women's sports isn't guaranteed anymore. They're going to need to rethink their approach, especially with more players watching how this Sabally deal plays out. What's particularly notable is how this deal might influence future negotiations. Athletes and their agents are going to point to this as an example of what's possible. It's not just about the money anymore. It's about the overall package, the vision, the opportunity to make an impact. The cultural impact of this deal shouldn't be underestimated either. Young players seeing someone like Sabally being treated as a major star, getting this kind of deal, being marketed this way, it changes perceptions about what's possible in women's sports. The industry is watching to see what Nike does next. Do they try to create their own women's-specific division? Do they become more aggressive in signing young talent? Do they change how they structure their deals? Their response could reshape the entire market. What's clear is that the old model of women's sports marketing is dead. Athletes want more than just a contract. They want partnership, respect, and the opportunity to help grow the sport. ADIDAS gets this, and that's why they're winning these battles right now. The future of women's basketball marketing is being shaped by moves like this. It's not just about individual deals anymore. It's about building communities, creating opportunities, and genuinely investing in the growth of the sport. That's the real story behind Sabally's move to ADIDAS, and that's why Nike is so worried about what comes next. The sneaker wars in women's basketball are heating up, and ADIDAS just landed a major blow with Satou Sabally's signing.